All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Thank you so much for joining me today and for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up there. I hope everybody is doing well today. Boss is already over here. We're talking about some pretty significant news today. A major report that Sony is looking to acquire the parent company FromSoftware, Kadokawa. This is not the first time something like this has been rumored, but this is coming from a very credible source, that being Reuters, pretty established. And it does seem like if this is going to occur, it's going to go through in the next couple of weeks. And DJ coming in, dropping a 10 bomb, 10 memberships gifted from DJ before we even kick off the stream today. DJ, thank you so much for that, man. That's very kind of you. So there we go. We're already at 10 memberships. Love to see it. Frank says, let's go MBG in chat with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, buddy. Yeah, appreciate the support, guys. Very, very much appreciated. Let me add that to the member counter. And yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on around this topic right now because people are, wondering, like, what does this mean for the future of FromSoftware titles? I mean, Elden Ring 2, is that going to be a thing? If it is, and if Sony does acquire the parent company of FromSoftware, what does that mean for Elden Ring 2? What does this mean for Bloodborne? And what about Kadokawa themselves? Who is Kadokawa? Well, we're going to talk about that stuff in today's stream because I know that there are a lot of questions, and I can't promise you that I have all the answers, but I will do my best to tell you what I think of this news and to tell you what to tell you why I think Sony is looking to acquire this company. It means we get to see some Xbots cry. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I think that there is some kind of like potential concern. Like I said, if Sony were to have 84% ownership of FromSoftware, would they just buy out the remaining percentage, right? The remaining 16%, I think Tencent, if I'm not mistaken, would have the other 16%. Would Sony just buy it out so they could have 100%? Ownership of FromSoftware? If they were to do that, would they then start making their games exclusive? Or at the very least, console exclusive, right? No Switch, no Xbox. This is a huge day for Sony in the Japanese market. Yeah, well, putting the gaming stuff aside, there's something we do have to acknowledge here with this rumor. Yeah, huge anime and manga deal here. You could argue that this is the main reason why Sony is looking to even acquire Kadokawa. It's not actually for their gaming division. The most significant thing that Kadokawa owns, seemingly, with their gaming division, as far as I can tell, is FromSoftware. But yeah, Kadokawa is a major player when it comes to anime, when it comes to manga, and we know that Sony has been really trying to, like, let's just call it what it is. They're trying to create a monopoly with anime and in the anime and manga sector. And so, if they were to actually acquire Kadokawa and everything that goes along with them, I mean, this would be a huge deal for their anime sector. And at that point, yeah, it seems like Sony would basically have a monopoly over this. But yeah, I'm much more interested in the gaming side here. I mean, look, I don't watch anime. I'm not into it. It does seem like this has massive implications for that side of the coin, but I don't know that I would really care too much about that. I'm really interested in, what does this mean for the future of FromSoftware and PlayStation. Edward Hulse with a super chat says, if this goes through, Sony doesn't just get FromSoftware, they'll also acquire the studio behind Octopath Traveler and Mario and Luigi Brothership. Yeah, see, I actually didn't know that, Edward. I appreciate you letting me know. I know there's more to it than just FromSoftware. I think Spike Chunsoft, or I don't know the name. I know that there's another gaming company that they own that is considered pretty relatively significant. Spike Chunsoft. There we go. I don't know if that's who you're referring to, Edward, but I know that there's basically like 4 different sectors underneath Kadokawa gaming wise, and FromSoftware is just one of them. FromSoftware is one of my favorite developers, though. So this is pretty huge, I would say, for me, if this were to go through. Sony would own Tetsu again. Yeah, well, that's another thing too. Kadokawa, from my understanding, owns a lot of IP. They own a lot of IP, and if Sony were to actually acquire this company, they would then acquire all of that IP. The Elden Ring IP, I will let you know, the Elden Ring IP is actually owned by FromSoftware. So the only thing I don't quite understand about this is if Sony were to acquire FromSoftware, or they were to acquire Kadokawa, they still don't own 100% of FromSoft. And I don't know what that really means in the grand scheme. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would own 84% of FromSoftware. The other 16% would be held by Tencent, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know what implication that has, if like that's the difference between Sony having complete control and deciding they want to make their games exclusive, or not being able to do that. They're also a major paperback publishing company. Yeah, see, I didn't know that either. Yeah, there's a lot I don't know about Kadokawa. I know they're really big. That I do know. Sony has a lot of IP. We've seen they can't do anything with that IP anymore. How would this be good for the gaming industry? I don't know that this would be good for the gaming industry. Consolidation is not usually not good for the gaming industry. In some cases, it depends, right? Like in the case of like Bungie, I don't know. Sorry, I'm eavesdropping. I don't know if like we could necessarily call the Bungie acquisition good for the industry. It depends on your viewpoint, because Bungie would be gone, like straight up. It's pretty clear that if Sony didn't step in, and I'm not saying Sony saved them, because Sony was not under that impression. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. But yeah, what I was trying to say is that Bungie would have been, on the ropes, and Sony wasn't trying to, save the day. Sony just didn't know. Sony didn't realize that Bungie actually kind of sucked, financially, and now we've seen the outcome of that. It was a bad acquisition. Maybe it can become good one day, but right now it's Sony had to eat a lot of that cost. They overspent, and there have been no results. There have been no results. So when you look at an acquisition like this, it's not necessarily that it would be good for the industry or bad for the industry. It really would depend on what they do with FromSoftware. I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to the wider acquisition of Kadokawa, that's just pure for Sony. Like Sony wants to have a monopoly in the anime sector, and this would essentially allow them to do that. I don't know if they're going to be allowed to get away with that, but that's what they're aiming for. And everything that they get from the gaming side of Kadokawa is basically just a bonus. It's basically the icing on the cake. Some really good icing at that. But yeah, it's like, would it be bad for the industry if Sony acquired FromSoftware and made Elden Ring 2 exclusive to PlayStation? I mean, you tell me, right? I mean, from my perspective, no. I don't see that as a bad thing, just because it's like, well, yeah, certain Xbox players won't be able to play it, but I'm not playing on Xbox, So it's like, well, I don't know, man. Sony likes to do exclusivity. would it be? It would. I'll tell you this. It would be bad for the potential reach of Elden Ring 2, but you could kind of see how Sony would want to be like, well, we could use this to sell consoles. So I don't know. I mean, it would be a very strategic move in that acquiring Kadokawa and then getting FromSoftware, maybe it would be better to do something like, listen, if they do Elden Ring 2, make it multi-plat. Make Elden Ring 2 multi-plat. But then we're going to do Bloodborne 2, and we're going to make that exclusive. I think, there you go. The best of both worlds. You don't strip away a game that was already out there for everybody, and you continue to let everybody play it and partake in it. And then you give PlayStation players and your console an exclusive that, I think people will be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Bloodborne 1 was an exclusive. Bloodborne is still like completely exclusive to PlayStation 4, which is crazy to think. So I think if they were to like do something like that, it would make a lot of sense. But I don't know. I think Sony wants to go. I could be wrong, but I don't. I think Sony, to be honest, if they do get complete control over FromSoftware, they're going to rip every game off of Xbox. At the very least, I don't know what they'll do with Switch 2, but Sony, I think, has made it crystal clear that they don't want to put shit on Xbox unless they're like held at gunpoint, And if they happen to be able to, if at the end of the day, if this deal does go through, if Sony can decide like we are going, like they're going to do Elden Ring 2, and we're either going to put it on Xbox or we're not, I think they say no. I think they say no. And I get it. Like some people might be like, well, that's kind of messed up. Microsoft isn't really doing that to Sony. It's like, yeah, but I don't think Sony cares, dude. Like Sony won't even put a Lego game on Xbox. So there won't be a Bloodborne 2. There could be. I'm telling you, man, Miyazaki, he's made it clear he loved working on Bloodborne, bro. That was his favorite game. You think that's a delusional take? I don't think so, man. I don't think it's delusional to think that Sony would want to go exclusive with their games. The reason why I say that is because, well, Sony's main priority here in the gaming sector anyway is to still sell consoles. And I'm going to be honest, man, you look at the type of pull like the next main FromSoftware game could have. Holy shit. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like a console seller to me. But maybe they would do PC. I could see them, doing PC, but I don't know about this idea of any studio that Sony acquires. I think that they want to try to leverage them to produce content that will move their consoles. I don't know, unless FromSoftware is making a live service game. I don't know what that would look like, but yeah, they could do that. Elden Ring 2 still going to Xbox, but just no Game Pass. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know, man. We don't know the scope of this in terms of like what Sony would really want to do. Look, I think when it comes to the anime and manga side of this conversation, it's very obvious what Sony wants to do. They just want to own it. They already own a lot in the anime and manga sector. They want to own as much as they possibly can. They want to have a monopoly on it. They want to have complete control. So that, I think, is obvious. When it comes to the gaming side, it's not so obvious because we are seeing Sony. Again, we just saw them release Lego Horizon on Switch. We're seeing them dabble in PC more. And so when you see a prolific developer like FromSoftware, it's like, yeah, they might end up being owned by Sony. They might FromSoftware might end up being a PlayStation studio when this is all said and done, if it goes through. What is that like? How does that translate? Is it like, well, FromSoftware is usually multi-plat, so we'll just keep a multi-plat. I mean, we look at Bungie and it's like, let me ask you this. We know Marathon's going to be on Xbox. Marathon's going to be on Xbox because, well, it was announced from day one with the acquisition. This is going to be an Xbox game too. Do we think the next Bungie product after that is also going to be on Xbox? Because I'm thinking no. I'm thinking the only reason Sony let that happen was because it was part of Bungie's terms to be acquired. But Bungie has been, they haven't been dissolved. They're still massive, but they've been greatly, greatly reduced. And that's because Sony was like, yeah, we're going to have to take over now. So I don't know, man. It seems to me like Sony has this, they still have that kind of older school mentality of just, if we end up owning it, we're not gonna put it on the competitor's console. We might put it on PC, and we'll see what happens with the Switch too. But I don't know, man. I think Sony, that's how they still operate that way. Josh, you're saying you're really worried about really good AA series like Octopath Traveler. Figuratively Literal with a super chat says, regarding anime and manga, while this would give them a large catalog, it wouldn't be a monopoly. Shueisha. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Jesus. Why are you doing this to me? Names I cannot pronounce have comparable catalogs. Still, it is a bit concerning. I mean, see, I don't know what you just said, figuratively literal. I can't even, I literally had a stroke trying to read the names there. Why can't I say, I'm like determined to figure out how to pronounce this now. You know what? Forget it. I don't want to get sidetracked. I mean, yeah, you're saying it wouldn't be a monopoly. I mean, I'll take your word for that. Because I don't know. I don't know anything about the anime and manga side of things. I have no idea. All I do know, this is the only thing, is that Sony has been making some plays recently. They've been making some plays recently to try to really get as much as they can and get a much tighter grip on the anime side of things. So you're saying it wouldn't be a monopoly. I'll take your word for it. You know, it's not in my wheelhouse. He's saying even after this acquisition, Sony would only own like 1/5 of the industry. Okay. Interesting. See, it's interesting that you're telling me that, because that's not the impression that I'm under. The impression that I'm under, based off of the way people are talking about it, is that like, so it's over. Like Sony owns it all now, which, you know, Zombie Dragon with a super chat says, if we're looking at Sony's history, unless it's a live service game, they'll most likely keep it exclusive, maybe PC. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I still think Sony and Microsoft, because, you know, that's the thing when we talk about this, right? It's like, well, if, you know, Sony's now about to make a major acquisition potentially, is this their response to Activision Blizzard? I don't think so, no. I do not think so. I think Sony's response to ABK was Bungie, and I think it failed. I think Sony felt like a lot of pressure to consolidate, because that's what everybody else was doing, and they don't want to get left behind. They even said that, by the way. They did say that like a year or two ago. They're like, we don't want to risk getting left behind. So I think buying ABK, Firewalk, Haven, Bluepoint, Housemarque, a lot of these acquisitions, half of them good, half of them clearly not good. The biggest one, Bungie, not good. I think this is more of a response to the failed Bungie acquisition, where this is an acquisition that, to be honest, makes way more sense for Sony than most others, where it's not just going to benefit their gaming sector. Actually, it's probably going to benefit the other areas outside of Sony more than the gaming area. The gaming sector is just, you know, the gaming division, I should say, is just one area that's going to benefit from this. And I think that this is more of a surefire acquisition, where, like, if they get this, it's going to ultimately be good. Like, it's not something that's nearly as risky as acquiring Bungie for billions of dollars, just to find out that we bought a team that doesn't actually really know what they're doing anymore. It doesn't seem like that at all. So I wouldn't say it's a response to ABK. I would say it's more of a response. I mean, technically, it would be their response. It's their response to their failed Bungie acquisition, to where like an opportunity has presented itself to invest, to acquire, but with much less risk and way more upside, you know? Waylark, you're saying could be good for Sony with Steam/PC, as Elden Ring sold 10 million copies in a week at launch on Steam. Now it's at around 14 million on PC. The game's overall sales are at 25 million. So PC made it money. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, dude. That maybe this could be how they test it. You know, I've talked to you guys for a while now about like, man, I feel like at some point Sony's going to want to test day and date with PC with a big single player game. But how do they do that without causing mass hysteria where it's like, oh, Sony did it, everything's day and date now? How do they experiment with that? Something like this could facilitate that. I mean, let's just say they do acquire FromSoftware. And I don't think it's going to be Elden Ring 2, but let's just say FromSoftware's next game is ready to release next year. I don't know what that game would be, but FromSoftware is always cooking, and they seemingly have something ready to go almost every year. Let's say their next game is ready to go next year. Let's say by that point in time, Sony owns FromSoftware, and they're considered a PlayStation studio. Sony could just say, yeah, that game's good. It's a single-player game. It's going to launch on PC day and date. I mean, I don't know that would signal that Sony's going to put Naughty Dog's next game day and date on PC. I think people might look at that and just say, oh, okay, well, you're kind of, you're kind of just going to, it's just going to be a FromSoftware thing. But what Sony can do is they can do that. They can check the data. They can see, they can have their first, maybe it's not going on Xbox. It's not going on Switch, but it's going to go on PlayStation and PC. That'd be an interesting time. I think that'd be the perfect time, to test something like that. Oh, my YouTube studio crashed. Hold on, guys. Okay. Venino, you're saying, so Phil was right. Acquiring well-established publishers and IP is the way. Your video kind of confirms that, MBG. I mean, listen, the idea of Phil being right, yeah, he's right sometimes. He's also wrong a lot of times. It comes with the territory. Phil, even though a lot of people won't admit it, Phil Spencer, he does know what he's talking about some of the time, right? Like he does know how to make some good decisions. If he didn't know how to make any good decisions, he wouldn't be in the position he's in. I mean, you can fail up, but you can't fail up, that badly, where it's like you've literally every decision you've made is a bad decision. No, you get fired. In this case, yeah, I'll give Phil a little bit of credit here, where I do think he was kind of right about that, where it does seem like these days, considering how volatile the market is, your best bet is to go with something more established. But to be fair though, this was applicable to Bungie. The whole idea was like, oh, the organic growth and shit. But once Sony announced they were going to acquire Bungie, like there's no more organic growth. That's as inorganic as it gets. Sony has nothing to do with Bungie, and yet they're going to acquire them. So I would say that what Phil said was correct, and Sony even knew that. Even Jim Ryan knew that. Because he's like, yo, we got to go with somebody tried and true. Somebody that knows Bungie. It just turns out that it's like, yeah, sure. Maybe on paper, Bungie seems like they know what they're doing. On paper, they seem like a safe bet. But at the end of the day, I think what it really reveals is that Sony, I'm telling you, I think Jim Ryan, he went in too hard with the acquisitions surrounding live service. I think Jim Ryan was like, Haven seems good, Firewalk seems good, but then I think Jim saw Bungie as a potential acquisition, and I'm telling you, listen, no matter what anybody says, Sony locked down Bungie as a response to ABK. It like that should be seen clear as day. I'm putting it that way because there are some people who really do think that that's not like, no, that's totally separate. That was all. And I'm not saying that they just called them up that day and said, do you want to be bought? Do you want to be acquired? No, they were talking to them previously. But I mean, let's face it. You think Sony didn't catch wind that Microsoft was in talks with ABK? Of course they knew. Of course they caught wind of that. Something that big? Yeah. That went through the, that slipped through the cracks. Sony knew, and they were like, we gotta get our own, boy. We gotta get our own. You're saying it's funny that a lot of people who were good with the ABK deal are now hating on this? Of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah, I saw a comment on Mystic's video. It made me laugh. Somebody was like, Xbox players today, suddenly acquisitions are not a good thing anymore. Acquisitions are now bad. I mean, yeah, of course. If Sony's going to make a major acquisition, it was always going to be this way. You're going to see people kind of like, oh, that's bad. But I don't know, man. I said this before I read these super chats. I do just want to say, back when the Activision Blizzard deal was in the process of trying to go through, right? I said numerous times, listen, man, if Microsoft is allowed to do this and they're just allowed to come in, pick up ABK and say, we own them now, it's fair game. Like, it's open season at that point. It doesn't get any bigger than that. So if Sony then makes their own big acquisition, yeah, no, I'm not going to point the finger at Sony. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Microsoft's the one that escalates it, because let's not forget, what did Xbox players say about PlayStation during the ABK trial and all that stuff? Well, it's because Sony made them do it. Sony bought all the exclusives, and they kept paying for third-party exclusives. They forced Microsoft's hand. Okay, well then what do you call this? I mean, if you want to play that game, right? So now I can say, well, Microsoft just bought ABK. I'd say that's 10 times bigger than any exclusivity deal Sony's ever signed in their history. So yeah, go ahead, Sony, buy a big fucking entity, because who cares at this point? It's over. Like, this is the consolidation that we've all feared, and it's happening. And I don't know, is it as bad as we thought? You tell me. I think time will tell, but this is where we are. Sally, you're saying Sony will gain a monopoly on anime/manga media in the West, buying Kadokawa. FromSoftware is just the bonus prize in this case. See, that's what's interesting. You're saying that you think they are going to get a monopoly in the West, but some people think that it's really not going to be anything close to a monopoly. But yeah, that seems to be the general consensus here, is that Sony getting FromSoftware, as insane as it sounds, is just kind of the bonus, the icing on the cake, when you would think that something like FromSoftware would be the cake itself. Waylark, you're saying Sony is getting them more for the anime and books, which makes up 55% of their revenue. The gaming side only makes up 12%. FromSoftware is a bonus. That's true, but you know what I want to point out here too, Waylark? And I think when we talk about Kadokawa as a company, it's pretty clear that, the gaming sector, it's nothing to like scoff at. It's still making good money, but it's not the bread and butter. However, I do want to point something else out here. Think about Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring sold 25 million copies. What PlayStation first-party game has ever sold 25 million copies? Not franchise. I'm not talking over the course of 2 or 3 games. I'm talking one single game. What game has that Sony made has sold anywhere near that? I think maybe the closest I could think of maybe is Spider-Man. No. Horizon 1 did not sell 25 million units. Horizon 1, I think. How many units did Horizon sell? Let me check real quick. What? As of April, I don't believe that, dude. As of April 2023, the game has sold 24.3 million units. Okay. All right. Wow. I stand corrected. What? Dude, the last time I swear the last thing I heard is it sold like 16 million or something. That's nuts. Hold on, is that counting? I find that hard to believe, dude. I'm sorry. That is crazy. What, like, how? How is this possible? I knew Horizon was successful, but I did not know. That was revealed in a PlayStation blog post in April 2023. Dude, does that count when they gave it away for free? Bundles? Bundles. Well, all right. Well, I guess what I'm trying to... I didn't realize that. All right. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I think Sony, they see a lot of potential with FromSoftware, where it's like, would Sony love to own Elden Ring 2 and when it releases, make a cool 25 million sales? Yes. Yes, they would. Could it end up being their biggest franchise? Yes, it could. But it is interesting to think that, I guess that's where the whole idea of like, would they make it exclusive or not? Would they get less sales? Would they get more console sales? Josh, a member for 55 months, long time member. Thank you, buddy. You're saying the timing of this is interesting considering Sony is financially backing a Pocket Pair that is dealing with a lawsuit. I think Sony is also trying to weaken Nintendo too. They are in direct competition despite the optics. Yeah, it reminds me of that video you sent me, Josh, where after watching that, it made me kind of realize like Sony and Nintendo are in more competition than I would have expected. The optics do seem to paint a picture that, oh yeah, they don't care about each other. They're not worried about each other. They're not necessarily friends, but they're not enemies either. They're both just doing their own thing. But no, after watching that video, it did seem to be pretty clear that no, there's definitely some. It almost feels like a Cold War, between Sony and Nintendo, where it's like they're not directly trading blows or anything, or not really outwardly trying to make it obvious, but they're still kind of very much aware of one another and, trying to, in one way or another, indirectly dismantle the other, Michael Lynch says it's over. Phil Spencer's making pancakes at IHOP and Rare's making honey instead of games. Never seen a company fall so far. God damn. Phil... I don't know why. Phil Spencer making pancakes at IHOP, bro. Phil, what happened? Nah, Phil, I think I'm pretty sure that man's set for life. But I don't know, dude. I don't know. Is this, I have seen some people kind of going with that approach where it's like, this is Sony going for the kill. They're going for the juggler. And it's like, well, I don't know that it's that. I don't know. I don't know that it's that. I feel like well, let me ask you, if you had to rank FromSoftware, right? If you had to rank FromSoftware, where do they fall? Are they the number one developer in the world? Are they number two? Are they number three? Are they even in the top five? Where would you rank them? Instant Messenger Samus says Sony is gatekeeping the Bloodborne remake / remaster for a reason. They'll just wait it out until FromSoftware is finally theirs. All of these titles are going to be crucial for the PS6 time exclusivity. I was thinking that too, bro. I'm like, man, there is now it becomes a little bit more clear why Sony is in no rush to do anything with Bloodborne. Top 5, I see. I agree with Arnie Vesper. Arnie Vesper says number 2 behind Rockstar. That's exactly where I would rank FromSoftware. I think, well, I mean, give me your top 5s. I think for me, Rockstar is still number 1. I mean, for as good as FromSoftware is, I don't think it would be fair or reasonable to say that FromSoftware is bigger than Rockstar in terms of just like notoriety and achievement. But I think they're on their heels. I think that FromSoftware has risen to the top very quickly, and I'd say like CD Projekt Red is up there. CD Projekt Red almost lost it, bro. They turned it around. They almost lost it, But yeah, I think CD Projekt Red is still in the top 5. I'd say Naughty Dog. I mean, a lot of people don't feel as strongly about Naughty Dog, but from just a technical standpoint, Naughty Dog's still top 5. So I guess I would leave room for one more. Who would be the fifth? But yeah, man, that's like, to me, that's kind of why I feel like this is such a big deal, because I mean, the idea of Sony just casually scooping up what I view as like the number 2 developer in the world, Nintendo, just straight up Nintendo is up there. Yeah. Capcom. James, you're saying Capcom's top tier, man. Instant Messenger Sama, I just want to go back to your super chat for a second and say, man, like, I've been saying for a little while now that, dude, Bloodborne Remake is being reserved as a launch PlayStation 6 game, specifically an exclusive. Bloodborne Remake is not going to be cross-gen. Sony's going to twist your arm into buying a PlayStation 6, and that's one of the ways they're going to do it. They're going to come out, they're going to hype you up for the PS6, next-gen greatness, baby, and then they're going to be like, oh, by the way, here's Bloodborne Remake on PS6 with ray tracing that's going to melt your eyes, man. The greatest cloth physics you've ever seen in gaming. And it's going to be a PlayStation 6 launch exclusive. And that's going to make people buy PS6s. Techie6, a member for 17 months, says, I can also see them making an anime show about their IPs like CD Projekt Red did with Cyberpunk. That would be interesting. Yeah, it is worth noting Sony already does own 14% of FromSoftware. And at the time, this was back in 2022, I believe, Herman Hulse said the reason they did this was not just for the games, but for transmedia as well, such as movies, shows, potentially, yeah, like you're saying, an anime here. It'd make perfect sense. I think you're right. We have Piper. He says, this Microsoft is dead delusion needs to stop. For anyone who thinks Microsoft is dead, just check their bank account. Well, Microsoft is far from dead. Xbox, listen, we should clear this up. Xbox, or hold on, Microsoft, not dead. Microsoft, alive and well. Microsoft, one of the richest companies in the world. Okay? Microsoft's doing just fine. Xbox, the gaming division underneath Microsoft, not dead, but not what it used to be. Xbox transformed. Xbox is, I mean, ironically enough, the word box should be removed. It should just be called Microsoft Gaming, because especially with this new marketing, everything's an Xbox. It's like, no, it's not. You're just a publisher. And your platform, and you're putting your publisher first with a platform, and you're putting your platform on other places. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, do what's best for your business, but it's just weird to see them. So I think when people say Xbox is dead, I don't take that literally. I take that as in, like, Xbox is no longer partaking in the traditional way of competing from a platform and from a console standpoint. And I think it's been that way for a while. I'll be honest. I think it's been that way for a while. Lakala says, Rockstar has given me one GTA and Red Dead Redemption 2 during the last 10 years. FromSoftware has given me more during this time. If Sony's included, they win. That's a good way of looking at it, I would say, because that is true. I mean, Rockstar, I think for a lot of people, is number one, but the price associated with that seems to be, you can expect two games every 10 to 12 years or whatever. And yeah, I mean, FromSoftware, it's interesting because I want to talk about the idea of what Sony could do for FromSoftware. Bro, one of the biggest criticisms that FromSoftware has faced for, I would say, a while now is from the technical standpoint. Their games, art direction wise, FromSoftware, I think, makes up for the lack of photorealistic graphics, which is fine. I'm not saying they need to be photorealistic. I'm just saying like From Software's found a way to navigate this and make it work. It would be very interesting to see what Sony could maybe help them achieve, technically speaking. By having that kind of extra resource and that extra engineering to kind of help back up whatever FromSoft is doing. But yeah, From Software's output has been insane when you think about it. I mean, they have something ready to go like every year or like every other year. And even at times when they're releasing something like Sekiro, where it's like, it's not Dark Souls, it's not our bread and butter formula, it's something completely different, they still win Game of the Year. It still does incredible. So it's like, I mean, Armored Core, they just did that, and it didn't win Game of the Year, but it was a completely different audience, but it was really good, apparently. So it goes to show that From Software, there's a reason why they've climbed the ranks so quickly and why they've become so prolific so quickly. And I don't think it's lightning in a bottle. I think it's just, they know what they're doing. They have some of the best management there. They have some of the best development talent in the world. And I'll be honest, man, it's hard for me not to see that as a winning combination if Sony is also involved with that. And I don't think Sony would want to like interfere or anything. I think that Sony would just be like, hey, is there anything we can help you with? Do you need more resource? Do you need more funding? Do you need more manpower? What do you need? Do you need help on the engineering side? Anything that we can offer? And I think that'd be a good thing. I mean, we've seen how well From Software and Sony work together with Demon Souls, with Bloodborne, right? And I think it's kind of already there. I think it's been established for a long time. So it'd just be it would be cool to kind of see it would be cool to see that kind of made more official in some way, in some capacity. Can't wait for Halo on PS5. Well, again, man, it all depends on, like, here's what's interesting about this situation, right? When Microsoft announced that they were acquiring Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, a lot of people were freaking out. And one of the reasons they were freaking out was because they were like, bro, PlayStation just lost all these games. Like, Microsoft's going to make these games exclusive and not available on PlayStation. And at first, it seemed like that is what they were trying to do, right? Where it's like Starfield and whatnot. But then we see now, hindsight 2020, no, that's not what they were going to do. Microsoft wants to be a publisher first. That's what they want to do. That's how they want to make their money. And when you compare that to Sony and this current situation, this current report where Sony is looking to potentially buy Kadokawa, which would mean they end up owning From Software being one of the biggest, if not the biggest developer in the world right now currently. The difference I would say is I don't think people are looking at Sony like, oh yeah, they're looking to become a publisher. Like, no, I don't think so, dude. And this is why I've tried to tell people, like, I don't think Sony and Microsoft are the same here. I don't think they have the same strategy. I don't think they have the same outlook. I think there's some overlap. I think there are some times where Sony does think, oh, maybe we can take a page out of this book, but just a page. We're not copying the book. We're not writing the book word for word. We're writing our own book, but maybe we'll take a page out of it. I think this is where when people, you see people kind of freaking out right now. We're like, oh shit. It's because I think they immediately go to From Software is going to be PlayStation exclusive now. And it's like, yeah, they probably are if this goes through. It would be more surprising if they weren't. But that's where, this is why I've tried to tell people, like, the fundamental shift in strategy that people try to claim that has taken place with Sony, there's not enough proof of it yet. And right now, there's currently more proof that hasn't happened. But if Sony were to get From Software, if Sony were to, like 5 years from now or 4 years from now, it's like Elden Ring 2's announced. it would not be the least bit surprising to me if Sony was like, we can use that to sell more consoles. And we're not talking about Xbox consoles. We're not talking about Nintendo's consoles. We're talking about our consoles. We can use it to sell more of our consoles and get more people invested in our ecosystem. Sony's doing that now without FromSoftware. You know, people bought PS5s for Elden Ring. People have been buying PS5s for PlayStation games. It's, you know, as well. It's just the fundamental, I would say, strategy that Sony has been implementing and is continuing to do so. I don't know, man. I don't think it's changed. And I do think that for people who have this kind of gut reaction to this news that, oh, well, if Sony gets FromSoftware, then they're going to, Sony's going to have their games as exclusives going forward, or at the very least, console exclusive. I think you're right. I think your gut instinct on that is right, because there's really not much evidence right there to tell us otherwise. And, listen, when we look back at the ABK deal and the ABK the Activision deal, I think some people kind of overlook the fact, and I get it, it's in the past, but if we do look back, some people I think are overlooking the fact that, dude, a lot of the Xbox fan base was cheering that on because they thought it was going to be exclusive, because they thought Microsoft was doing it for them. And it's like, no, they're not doing it for you. They're doing it for their bottom line and their business. And when and that's when like the brutal realization came that, like, not only are they not making Call of Duty exclusive, but Bethesda games aren't going to be exclusive. And now we're talking about possibly Halo and Gears going to PlayStation. So pretty much they were cheering on the exact opposite of what they wanted. When it comes to this situation right now with Sony and Kadokawa, could it be the same thing? Where it's like, don't cheer on exclusivity because FromSoftware is not going to be exclusive. Yeah, it could be. Sony could very well just acquire them, own FromSoftware, and just be like, man, cool. We're not going to make, no, go ahead. You guys keep doing your thing. We'll just rake in the money. Yeah, they could do that too. But I don't think that, this signals like, you know what, maybe we will put God of War on Xbox too. Maybe the next God of War, we'll consider putting that on Xbox. I don't think so. That's why I just think, we're seeing different outcomes here. We're seeing the tether of acquisition, but I think potentially very different outcomes. Let me see. Julian, you're saying read my last message. I'm not seeing it. You overlooked that Kadokawa wants Sony. It takes two to tango. Kadokawa will have their own baggage. They do anime and all sorts. It's a big company with synergies beyond FromSoft. Well, I mean, yeah, it's not to say that there isn't risk. There's absolutely risk. This could be the biggest mistake Sony ever makes. This could be the biggest mistake they ever make. I mean, this is going to be an expensive acquisition, but I'll be honest, man, I don't think it gets any worse than Bungie. I'm going to be totally real with you. I think we saw the worst of the worst, and that is Sony paid $3.6 billion, which is more than they've ever paid for any acquisition for a studio. They paid $3.6 billion, and they got, like, they literally only lost money. They have not made a cent back from Bungie. And it's clear that Marathon's not going to do it. It's clear that whatever, like, the future of Bungie is just totally unclear. So I would say with Kadokawa, yeah, they are going to have their own baggage, obviously, and there is risk. But I do think that it seems like an acquisition with way more upside, like clear upside, where if things were to go wrong, a lot would have to go wrong all at one time, which is possible. It has happened, but Perfect Image, you're saying if PlayStation didn't care, I guess you're saying if PlayStation didn't care about like physical discs, game discs, Sony wouldn't buy a. Okay, I get what you're saying. If Sony didn't care about physical, they wouldn't buy a physical manufacturer. Are you saying that because Kadokawa apparently publishes a lot of um, hard copies of their, books and stuff and manga? Is that what you're getting at? Market cap for Kadokawa was around 3.5 billion US. So they could be looking at around the 7 billion range. Well, I think one of the things that that Bungie totally sold Sony on, which was, it makes me think, like, honestly, maybe just Jim Ryan really didn't know what he was doing in this regard, potentially, where I don't know if you remember, but when Sony bought Bungie, like, there was this big conversation around, like, the synergy we're gonna have, man. We're gonna do a multimedia, Destiny's movies, Destiny's shows, Destiny books, Destiny toys, like everything. And it's like, actually, Destiny's just probably gonna die. But the point is, like, there was nothing established there. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like the only way that stuff happens, a Destiny movie, a Destiny TV show, a Destiny this, a Destiny that, is Sony's got to make it happen because Bungie isn't. Bungie can't even keep Destiny thriving as a game. So I think once Sony realized that, holy shit, these guys sold us a product that's about to die or is at the end of its life, and now it's up to us. I think that's where when you look at like Kadokawa, like they're buying a company that is already established in these different areas. And that's why I think it's just more about, it's like it's just going to easily, seamlessly blend into what Sony's already doing. And the same can be said for FromSoftware, where it's like, I don't think FromSoftware is an unwise investment. I think that's one of the wisest investments you can make, where it's like, I mean, does it seem like FromSoftware is going to shit the bed anytime soon? I don't think so. I'm not saying they couldn't, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it anytime soon. Waylark, you're saying Dark Souls whole franchise lifetime sales is only 2 million more than Elden Ring's. 27 million to Elden Ring's 25 million. That's crazy. That is crazy. And that's what's wild to me about Elden Ring is like when you play Elden Ring, you're like, this is Dark Souls. Like that's what this is. This is Dark Souls. It is different in some ways. Like the biggest difference is it's open world, but it's basically open world Dark Souls. It's just, I don't know, something about Elden Ring. It caught fire, man. Like it achieved. I think it's like, if you look at it, it's kind of a natural trajectory here where like you could look at Elden Ring and say that's Demon Souls. Like the DNA of Demon Souls is right there. Like you could trace it back. And it's funny because Demon Souls found no commercial success. Demon Souls found no commercial success. It took Dark Souls for them to find any commercial success. And then after Dark Souls, it took Elden Ring to find that next level of, mass commercial success. So I don't know if they could go beyond that, but do I really believe Destiny is dying? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe Destiny 3 could be a thing and it could be huge and, Bungie can make a big comeback. Arkham927 says, do you think us physical gamers should join the digital train since PS6 will most likely be digital only? That way the Switch won't be as hard. I'm going to say no. Like, it depends. Like, if it's not a big deal for you and you don't really care, maybe. But I'm going to say the PlayStation 6, you will be able to play physical games on it. It's, if you, I don't know if they're gonna have a disc-based version of the PS5 like out of the box you can buy, but you will be able to buy the disc drive you buy from Sony right now. They will offer that. They will offer a disc drive. So I'm not saying you won't have to pay a little bit extra for it, because I don't know. I could see that happening, but you will be able to still play physical games. So I'm going to say no. I wouldn't do that. if it matters to you. You know, if you don't care, if you're just looking for an excuse, you know, to go digital, where you're like, well, fuck it. You know, I assume the PS6 is going to be digital. I don't really care too much about physical anymore anyway. So sure. Okay. Yeah. Like that's fine. But if not, I would say no, that you should be. I'm fully expecting the PlayStation 6 will still be, it will still support physical games. And we will still, for example, if we get Demon Souls Remake at the launch of the PS6, I fully expect to be able to buy a physical version of the PlayStation 6 Bloodborne Remake. You know? Lord Canyon, you're saying it doesn't benefit us. We already get those games. Well, no, you're right. It doesn't benefit us in any direct way. If Sony, the only way I could see Sony having FromSoftware benefiting us would be, again, if Sony is able to help with the development side. You know, like if they can give them some kind of technical support that ultimately means we get better running, better performing, better from a technical perspective, a better FromSoftware game, and Sony was able to facilitate that and help that, then I would say that is a benefit. But, you know, in terms of like, you know, does it benefit me if Sony decides Elden Ring 2 is not going to Xbox? Yes, actually it does, because I can make content on it. But I'm being facetious. No, it doesn't. Like, I enjoyed Elden Ring and platinumed it on my PS5, and I didn't give a flying fuck that it was also available on Xbox. You know, it is what it is. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if Sony does decide, fuck Xbox, we're making it exclusive. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're within your right to do that. Microsoft did that to us with Starfield, so you know, I don't know. It is what it is, man. It's like if you, it's like Sony. If your goal, because I would be like, all right, Sony, if you want to make Elden Ring 2 exclusive, even though the first one released on Xbox, what is your goal here? Like, why do that? I suspect their answer is because we want to sell more consoles. And it's like, oh yeah, that's actually a really effective way to do that. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, it's hard to argue that. That's why it was always kind of weird with Microsoft's side. Microsoft was in a weird position with Starfield because they were like, yeah, we want everybody to game everywhere and shit. You know? Accessibility. It's like, oh, so I guess that means Starfield's going to come to PlayStation. No. Oh. You get what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? It's like it didn't really line up with what they're saying one thing and then kind of doing another. That's why I think what Microsoft's doing now compared to Sony, yeah, what Microsoft's doing now actually does line up with their messaging. Where it's like, yeah, we want to be everywhere. We want our games to be everywhere. We want everybody to be playing our games. That's the most important thing. It's like, okay, yeah, you're taking steps to make that a reality. So it makes sense. But it's like, you know, if you turn to Microsoft and you're like, but what about your console? And it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, we don't really care about console sales. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense too. So there you go. 2 + 2 = 4 logic right there. That's why I just feel like on the other side of the coin, you look at Sony's logic. Sony's logic is we still care about selling consoles. So therefore, to an extent, we still care about exclusivity. But we also care about overall growth. So to an extent, we also do care about trying to make things as available as we can where it makes sense to do so. That's the difference. I would say Microsoft is all in. Sony is partially in. And because of that, I think Sony is a bit more unpredictable when it comes to what they would do with a future FromSoft. You know, if they owned FromSoftware, I think it's unpredictable what they would do with their games, you know? Okay, a member for 14 months says, you talked extensively on Microsoft potentially ruining the studios they bought. Why so much faith PlayStation won't ruin FromSoftware after the Bungie / Concord debacle? Well, It's because when I look at Sony, dude, it's like they could destroy FromSoftware. When it comes to the whole Bungie Concord thing, my read on that is Sony didn't destroy them. They were all like, they were going to get destroyed either way because they were not good teams. Like Bungie was kind of, they are kind of a shell of their former self. Bungie was on, like, they were in deep shit. And I don't know how, but they seemingly hid it from Sony where it's like, bro, who did you just acquire here? Like, these guys are falling apart, right? Maybe Sony did think that they could save them. And when I look at Firewalk, it's kind of a similar situation where it's like, I think Firewalk, again, that's like Sony, whether it be Herman Hulst or multiple people at Sony, look at that and be like, oh my God, these guys are so good. And it's like, what proof do you have? You get what I'm saying? It's like, what, like, Herman, bro, what proof do you have that Firewalk is good? It's my gut. It's my gut. I feel it. It's like, yeah, that's not going to fly, dude. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. That's where I feel like when you look at something like FromSoftware, it kind of does remind me of Call of Duty in the sense that Microsoft has proven they know how to fuck studios up. Sony has fucked up some studios too, to be fair, but Microsoft has fucked up a lot worse. There's a difference between, you know what, we fucked up. We fucked up with Halo. We fucked up with Gears. We halfway fucked up with Gears. We fucked up with Fable. We messed up these studios. We had to rebuild. We had to acquire and just like restructure and reorganize. There's a difference between that and, yeah, we bought Call of Duty and completely fucked up all the studios working on it and completely fucked that game up. I feel like there's a big difference. So what I'm trying to say here is Microsoft would have to reach a new level of incompetence, in my opinion, to mess Call of Duty up. But to a lot of people, Call of Duty's already messed up. But I mean, to get it to a point where it's like you messed up so bad, you wiped out half of your player base. I feel like a similar logic applies to FromSoftware, where it's like they're established, they got a good thing going, they got their fan base, they rake in the money. All you need to do is not fuck it up. And most of the time, what that means is you don't interfere. You just you have a support role, right? Where Microsoft, what they probably need to do more than anything with Call of Duty and the studios that make it is support them. Whatever you need, we got it. If there's some kinks that need to be ironed out, we'll step in and help you out. We'll give you the resources. We'll do what needs to be done. But the idea of Microsoft stepping in and be like, here's how we want to run the show now, right? That's risky because it's like, dude, they have a way of doing things. And if you interfere with that, the outcome, the end product might be way different than what you were getting previously. If Sony were to acquire FromSoftware, I would expect a very similar result of or approach where let the goats do what they do. You know what I mean? Like they don't need your input. They just need your support. Right? They need more money, you give them more money. If they need some more manpower, you throw over, you give them some engineers and help them out. If they need more marketing, you know what I'm saying? But from a more creative standpoint, I don't think Sony would need to get involved. And I think that's because FromSoftware has proven they know what they're doing. You don't tell them what to do. They don't need that guidance, I think Bungie did need that guidance, but Sony was convinced they didn't. And I think same with Firewalk. And okay, you're saying MBG, that doesn't mean it's much easier for PlayStation to mess up. FromSoftware, as they have so much further to fall being on top. There's no such thing as buying a major corp and not having major changes / layoffs. Well, hey man, I will tell you, there's no guarantee it's just going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's no promise of that. There's no promise of that whether there's an acquisition or not. There was no promise that Call of Duty would be any better or any worse if they weren't acquired, just like there's no promise that they will be any better or any worse if they are acquired. It's one of these things where I think you have to look at the track record of the company. And the only thing that I would say is also it's not the only thing, but another thing that's extremely different between Sony acquiring somebody like Bungie and somebody like Firewalk versus FromSoftware is FromSoftware's expertise is single player games, and so is Sony's, right? And so I feel like I trust Sony's instincts a little bit more. If it's like we bought a single player studio, and we're gonna try to like grow them or keep them on the top, at the top of their game. I trust them in that regard more, comparatively. So there's like, we bought Bungie, so we don't know what we're doing. They're the experts, not us. So they're going to tell us what to do. And then they turn to Sony like, wait, yeah, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We're sinking right now, bro. I feel like there's a big difference there. But I do get what you're saying. There is risk, no matter what. There is risk. And so when it comes to the potential downside of acquisition, regardless of who you're rooting for or why you're rooting for them, it does need to be understood that if a big corporate entity acquires a studio, the end result could be disastrous. That's very much a possibility. But right now, I don't see much that gives me... Like, I would make the argument that Sony should have been wise enough from the start to realize that if you're going to try to acquire a studio, you're better off with somebody like FromSoftware. Stay away from Bungie. Stay away from Firewalk. Stay away from Haven. You don't know what you're doing here. You're out of your depth. You know what I mean? Sony's worked with FromSoftware in the past, so they already have like established relationship. So I feel like I trust that a lot more. Waylark, you're saying still sad to see Sony stop trying anymore and just start buying success. They're turning into Microsoft. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not going to make that judgment yet because it's like, well, Sony, Waylark. Sometimes I think Waylark, bro. Sometimes I think you drop these super chats to try to. He's trying to trigger me, bro. It's working. It's working, Waylark. Keep it coming, Waylark. We're gonna go toe to toe. No, in all seriousness, I think that this is where it's important not to overlook. You're saying they're becoming like Microsoft. I don't know. Are you sure about that, Waylark? Because think about it. Sony, the most successful games that they've released in the last 10 years were not from major studio purchases that they made like the year prior or 2 years prior or 3 years even. The most successful games that Sony has released in the last 10 years are from either A, studios they bought a long time ago and built up slowly, meticulously over time. And basically they found the diamonds in the rough and they polished them up, right? Or from very strategic partnerships, such as, again, Bloodborne with FromSoftware, that they work directly with them. I think that's very important, again, to consider or to keep in mind when we have these conversations, because that's where, you can't necessarily compare the way Sony is operating with the way Microsoft is operating, because there still is a difference. Now, we hear about like Fable. I don't know if you guys saw, there was like this rumor where somebody saw some alpha gameplay of Fable, and apparently it's like really good. And I'm like, that's a positive sign, because what that means is Microsoft may finally be, they're in the beginning phases of being able to understand, like, so this is how you kind of work with the studio over a long period of time, build them up. They did acquire Playground, but like, start to grow them a bit more organically, right? That's a positive sign. And that's what Sony's been doing for a little while now. It doesn't always work out. That's where I feel like, there is, I would say, a relatively tried and true way of being able to build studios up. And the biggest problem you could argue that these companies run into is time. It takes time, a lot of time. Sometimes it takes studios kind of faltering a bit and taking some time to find their footing. Sometimes it requires they put out one game, it gets like a 6.5 or 7 rating average, and it's not the big system seller they thought it would be, but they see that it's a diamond in the rough. It has potential, the raw potential, and they can do more with it. Sometimes that's what it takes. And And it's cool. It's always awesome to see that. And so, there are those times where sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and make the big buy, right? There are those times. And it is ironic that, the one time Sony did that, arguably was, again, with Bungie. The one time they do it, holy shit, they basically shot themselves in the foot. It's ironic. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm okay rooting for this acquisition more so than Bungie, because to me, this seems like an acquisition that actually makes a lot more sense for Sony and what they're known for. Putting the anime and manga stuff aside, even though that's the biggest reason they're probably acquiring them, knowing that FromSoftware has a deep history with Sony, knowing that when you look at what Elden Ring is, you see how big Elden Ring is. The DNA of Elden Ring is traced back to Demon Souls, and Demon Souls is traced back to a big exclusivity partnership that Sony wanted to strike with FromSoftware. And I don't know, I remember watching documentaries about this, but for those who don't know, do you know what caused Sony to seek out FromSoftware to get them to build Demon Souls? It was, I think it was it Skyrim at the time? I'm pretty sure it was the Elder Scrolls Skyrim that was in development and being shown off, and it was either that or Oblivion. Yeah, it was Oblivion. Okay, yeah. I was like, Skyrim doesn't sound right. It was Oblivion. Oblivion was the big Bethesda RPG that was exclusive to Xbox. Xbox struck that deal, and Sony kind of realized that, shit, we don't have anything like that. And so they sought out a partner that they believed had the capability to make a game, not the exact game, but something in that genre, something that could compete. And so they partnered with FromSoftware, and that's what Demon Souls was supposed to be. And here's what's interesting about the development of Demon Souls, and again, kind of the history of Sony and FromSoftware. Apparently, the development of Demon Souls was kind of disastrous. It was really bad, and things were not coming together. And that's where Miyazaki got his chance to direct, because basically what Miyazaki was handed, they were like, bro, do you want to try directing this? Like, this is a piece of shit. We don't know what we're doing. You want to try it? And he was like, yeah. And you know why Miyazaki agreed to direct Demon Souls? Because he was basically told, like, you can do whatever you want. Like, this is considered a failed project. And that's what's so fascinating. The birth of this Souls-like genre came from Sony wanting to pursue a big mega hit that wasn't coming together to compete with Oblivion. And what they ended up getting was a project that was in development hell, and Miyazaki came in and said, sweet, I can do whatever I want. And he did. And Sony hated it even more. And that's what makes the history of Sony and FromSoftware so interesting, is that Sony, when Demon Souls was finished and it was like almost ready to ship, I think at the time it was Shuhei Yoshida, he was like, this is bad. This is real bad. And the reason why he thought it was bad is because he thought it was like unplayable because it was way too hard. And it's so ironic that, like, the things that Sony at the time identified as like, this is not going to work, that, like, these are actually the things that eventually, maybe not for Demon Souls, but eventually, when Miyazaki was able to refine more so with Dark Souls and eventually with Elden Ring. So I say the DNA can be traced. These are the things that, so it does go to show that Sony doesn't always know, man. And believe me when I tell you, FromSoftware is the biggest one that got away from Sony. And you can't, it's hard to blame Sony, because it's like, you could kind of see with Demon Souls how is this supposed to be mass appealing? I wouldn't have thought it would have been, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I would know better. Like, oh yeah, this game where you get absolutely fucking crushed and you get punished even harder if you're struggling. Yeah, people are going to love it. Like, no, I would think, like, man, this is going to have a really small audience. And to be fair, Sony was right at the time. Demon Souls found a small but loyal audience, but the potential of what that audience could one day become, and the potential of what that formula could become, Sony didn't see that. And Miyazaki did. And that's why it's like, Sony bent over backwards, bro, to get that deal done with FromSoft for Bloodborne. They're like, we need to work with this man again. Like, we're sorry. We fucked up. Waylark, you're saying, but what's a good game if the sales are not there? Sony are buying a game now with more sales than pretty much all their first-party games. COD is a top-selling game almost year on year. That's why it was bought. Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? You talk about these things that are being purchased. There's a reason why the price tags are so high. The price tags are so high because they're the closest thing to guarantees you can get. And that's why, it's like, okay, well, we spent X amount of, we spent like X billion dollars on this studio or this IP or this company as a whole. Well, why'd you do that? You're clearly not going to make that money back with their next game, even with their next two games. You do that because you have you're doing it in good faith, to be honest. Like, the good faith is, well, these guys have been doing it for a while now, and they've proven they know what they're doing. It's a money-making machine, so all we got to do is just keep it going. And if we could just do that, then we inherit the money-making machine. And eventually, if we could just keep it going for 10 years, right? We're going to make not only what we spent back, but we're going to make more than that. So, it's a long-term investment. And that's why when you talk about, again, not to just keep bringing it up, but you talk about Firewalk, I don't know why I'm calling him Firework. You talk about Firewalk, that's why it's so crazy that people are like, how much money was dumped into this? Like, wait, how much money was dumped into it? It's like, the budget of like 2 AAA games. And it's like, so, you do realize that's going to be a huge, huge loss if this doesn't hit, right? And that's why it's like, it seems to me like Sony was basically spending the money either way. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with taking a chance. If anything, and I know how people are going to take this like I'm fanboying for Sony, and I'm really not, but I'm just saying, like, the one thing you can't take away from Sony in this regard is they at least tried with something new. You know what I mean? Like, it was a stupid investment, and anybody could have seen, like, that's not the thing to invest in. But I'm just saying, like, they were like, we really think this could be big. And I just think that they found out the hard way. That's like, bro, I don't think you understand, like, what's going on in this live service multiplayer space and what you think can be big. And I think that's why it's kind of ironic that it's the irony is not lost on me that one of the first things we're hearing after the announcement of the closure of Firewalk, after the announcement of the closure of Concord, the shutting down of Concord, is Sony might end up in the next couple of weeks owning FromSoftware. And that's like the irony there is the thing that they needed to believe in. Granted, we're talking about different leadership, different people, but the thing that they needed to believe in the beginning and invest the most amount of money in was Miyazaki with FromSoftware with Demon Souls in 2009. And they didn't. They said, we hate this game. The thing that they did years later decide that they need to invest deeply in and invest hundreds of millions of dollars into without any proof that it deserved that being Concord and Firewalk ended up burning them worse than anything they've ever done. And that's why it's just like, you know what? If the conclusion after going through that over the last, God, man, I mean, you're talking nearly a decade and a half, 14, 15 years. If the conclusion is, fuck it, we're just going to have to buy Kadokawa and that's how we're going to get FromSoftware as well. And we're going to make it right. This is how it should have been. We're going to make it right. We're a day late and we're 15 years late and hundreds of millions of dollars short. But you know what? We lived, we learned, we got burned. Now we know what needs to be done. The irony is there, man. And I don't know if people can see it as clearly, but if you know the history between FromSoftware and Sony, and then you've seen some of the decisions that Sony's made in the recent, the past like 2 or 3 years, it's very interesting that this is what we're hearing about. And so it feels better, dude. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'd much rather be talking about the idea of Sony acquiring FromSoftware through Kadokawa. I would much rather be talking about that than Sony bought another live service studio, Like, oh, okay. God, how bad would that look, right? Saying it's more likely that FromSoftware games go to more platforms as purchase isn't about exclusivity. It's to cast as wide a revenue net as possible with FromSoftware established IPs and platforms. It could be. Yeah. I mean, listen, to be honest, I don't think I think it's a coin flip. I think people, all right, like, let's say Sony announces we own FromSoftware like a month from now. And then they also make it abundantly clear, like, FromSoftware games are going to be exclusive now. I don't think anybody would be like, gasp, I can't believe this happened. Like, I'm so shocked. I don't think anybody would be shocked. I think people would be like, oh, well, okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds like something Sony might do or would do. But I also think, to be honest, I think the other side of that is if Sony said, yeah, we acquired FromSoftware and no exclusivity, we're not worried about that. I don't think people would be like, oh my God, I'm shocked. Like, I think it would just be like, oh, I guess that kind of does make sense considering what you did with Marathon. And I think it would be maybe like 40-60, right? I think 60% surprise, 40% not surprise. Vice versa, depending on the outcome. Waylark with another super chat says, if Sony goes exclusive with FromSoft, do you think Microsoft would use that for any future acquisitions? Take-Two would maybe be possible then for them. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's one of these things where I know FromSoftware is big, and they do have mass appeal, but I don't know that they're big enough to where if Sony said we're going to make them exclusive, that would be enough to kind of create a ripple effect where, like, suddenly it's like, oh, the regulatory bodies are now looking at Sony. Because FromSoftware's, I mean, again, at the end of the day, Kadokawa is a major corporation and a major entity. FromSoftware is just a very big studio. I don't think Sony would be under much scrutiny if they decide, even if, for a studio as big as FromSoftware, I don't think they would be under a ton of scrutiny. I mean, would Microsoft use it against them? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The next time Microsoft's in court having to talk to the FTC, that's all you're going to hear them talk about. And why not? If Sony does go for the exclusivity play, yeah. I mean, that's a risk you take. Now, on the other side of that, if Sony doesn't do any exclusivity with FromSoft, they make it easier for them to do more acquisitions in the future if they're interested in doing so in the gaming space. But I don't know that anybody's going to buy Take-Two Interactive. I'll be honest, man. Buying Take-Two Interactive is especially on the cusp of GTA 6, like, it's one of these things where it's like, so what sense does this make again? None? Oh, okay. You see what I'm saying? Where it's like, GTA 6 is the upper limit, I would say, of, like, value that a single studio and a single game can hold. And, there were, like, many, many years ago, around the time GTA 3 was coming out, Like, that would have been the time for Sony or Microsoft or somebody else to be like, we got to buy these guys right now. If they're even willing to sell, that would have been the time. Now it's over. I just think it's too, unless GTA 6 is, greatly underperforms or something goes wrong financially for Take-Two Interactive where suddenly they're hurting and they're in a really bad spot. Maybe they would sell for, they would sell at a lower price, but they're in a position of strength. And that's what's interesting about the Kadokawa situation. And why it was brought up earlier that you got to keep in mind the potential baggage that they bring on as well. Absolutely. You absolutely have to consider that there's a reason why they're willing to sell. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in dire straits or anything like that. It just, it could just mean that there's a couple of things here that you might have to take on as well. And if a company feels like it's not a big deal and they can handle it, then so be it. But, this is why, like, when Microsoft acquired ABK, people were like, I can't believe they did these layoffs and stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, when Microsoft acquired them, they definitely identified like stuff like, we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. That's really not what we're trying to buy right now, right? It's like, well, why would you just get rid of something you just paid for? Because it's ultimately going to cost them more money in the long run. Yes, we're talking about sectors of their, of ABK. Yes, we're talking about people's jobs, but that's how these corporations view it. That's how they view it, where it's like, we're making this major investment, we're making this purchase, we're taking on everything. It's the same thing with Sony and Bungie. Like, look at how many people they cut from Bungie. It's like, Sony looks even worse because, like, dude, they paid over $1 billion for employee retention just to lay off like a third of their studio anyway. Ice Razor, you're saying MBG, so you're okay with consolidation. Sony is the largest distributor of anime, and this acquisition would make them a monopoly. Well, no. I mean, that's kind of the annoying part here, man. It's like, I'm going to be real with you. I don't give a shit about the anime part. I just don't. Like, I think that sucks. Like, I don't think Sony should have a monopoly in anime. I kind of just wish they could just get FromSoftware, So overall consolidation at the end of the day, that's the thing. Like, I want to see Sony get FromSoftware, and I think FromSoftware would be great with Sony. But that doesn't mean consolidation is suddenly good. It's still not good. It's just, I guess I've just accepted at this point that it doesn't really matter whether I think it's good or not. It's what's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. And there's not a damn thing I can do about it. So I guess my outlook on it is maybe kind of similar to what, I don't know. It's just like, look, if this means that we can get something more with Bloodborne, or Sony can help make Elden Ring 2 or future FromSoftware games run and play even better, okay, that's the positive for me. Waylark, you're saying Take-Two still valued less than ABK before their purchase, which is crazy to think. That's crazy to think. Should you praise it, though? No, there's nothing to praise here. I mean, it's not necessarily, I would say, a scolding or a praising as much as it's just, does it make sense? I would say it makes complete sense why Sony's doing this. Just like it did make complete sense why Microsoft was going for ABK. The big thing with the ABK thing is I couldn't get a read on Microsoft's angle. And it wasn't until it was done and then they did what they did that it became very clear, oh, I misread them on that. What I mean by that is when Microsoft was fighting for their life for ABK, I really thought they were bullshitting. I do. Like, I thought that they were bullshitting, and they, like, who are they kidding? They're going to use this to absolutely destroy their competition and just completely flip everything over on its head and say, fuck you. You know, I thought that's what they were going to do. And instead, they're like, no, we're just going to be more of a publisher and make a fuck ton of money now. It's like, oh, well, that's a lot less. I mean, that's not nearly as bad as I thought, you know? And to be fair, Microsoft was being a little cagey themselves at times. So, and I think that was because there was, I think at the time, there was a bit of internal battle inside of Microsoft where even they were having like arguments like, what should we do? What should we do? And I think at the end of the day, the higher ups at Microsoft were like, we just got to focus on making the most amount of money. And it's easy to do if we just play along and get along, right? And actually try not to compete as hard. Waylark with another super chat. Thank you, buddy. You're saying, I just hope Sony don't make From Software games easier or get more mass appeal. That seems to be the main fear. Yeah, that would suck. That I think that's totally fair. That's a totally fair fear to have if, you know. How dare you slander anime, MBG? A lot of it is life-changing for many people, and it's because Western BS has largely stayed out of the medium. This changes that. Well, I'm not slandering it, Josh. I respect anime, you know. I know that anime is extremely important to a lot of people, and I guess I try not to talk about it because I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? I don't know much about what's going on in anime, and I just kind of get a little bit here and there from like who's buying who and what not. So, but Waylark, back to your super chat. Dude, Sony would have to be brain dead to think that they should try to dumb down FromSoft games and make them more accessible. That would be the dumbest thing they could possibly do because it's like, so you didn't learn your lesson the first time. You know what I mean? Like Sony didn't believe in Demon Souls because they thought it was too hard and inaccessible. But I think Sony gets it now. I think they do get it. Don't forget, they allowed them to make Bloodborne. And Bloodborne was not dumbed down, not made easier, not made more accessible. But Sony truly is a believer now, I would say. Who couldn't be a believer now? When you look at what Elden Ring has achieved, how could you not be a believer? You surely even Herman Hulst believes, bro. I mean, my read on this is, or not my read, but I guess what I'll say, I know, Josh, I know. I guess what I'm trying to say is like what I think Sony should do if they do end up gaining control of FromSoftware is a whole lot of nothing. Right? Like just let them do what they like. Just ask them if they need anything or if they want anything. You can offer that. But outside of that, if they're like, no, we're good, we're just making our games, let you know when they're done. Okay, that's it. That's all that needs to be done. You don't really need to go any. I would say the only thing Sony should probably like, and I think everybody would be okay with this. The only thing Sony should press FromSoftware for is like, so Miyazaki, where are we on that Bloodborne 2, Bloodborne sequel? You know, we feeling that? You know, and he's like, well, I got like 3 other games I'm making. It's like, oh, okay. All right. Well, what do you want to like? Do you want to just give your stamp of? Can you just look at this Bloodborne remake we've done? Can you look at it and sign off on it so we can tell everybody that you're good with it? I don't know. That's like that's just one little quick patch for Bloodborne. How many games does FromSoftware have in development right now, man? It's like a lot. How much is this company worth? Somebody told me, I think they're worth like 3.5 billion, but there is I don't know. I think it's like they would probably be purchased for like a couple more billion. Over 20? Wait, hold on. Over 20 billion? Well, let me look this up. That doesn't sound right. Wait, like you're saying still a small risk. It's their one major successful game compared to their previous ones, sales-wise, I mean. Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing that I I like Dark Souls more than I like Elden Ring. You know, so it's like when you told, I think it was you, Waylark, that mentioned this earlier, where it's like, oh, 20 games. I was going to say 20 billion. That doesn't sound right. But the Dark Souls trilogy, it took like 3 games to sell pretty much the same amount as it took Elden Ring, just 1 game to sell in like 2 years. And that's crazy to me because I like the Dark Souls games better. And so for me, the sales don't really matter. Like, I don't think Elden Ring is a better game just because it sold more. I can understand why people view it as a better game, because in some ways it is, but in most ways for me, I just enjoyed Dark Souls better. And so for me, it's just one of these things where like I think, you know, FromSoftware, again, man, FromSoftware made Armored Core after Elden Ring, man. Like, they don't give a shit. They do what they want. And that's where I do think that's why I think it does make sense that people are like, yeah, getting FromSoftware is like kind of just a bonus. Because I don't think Sony, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Sony wouldn't buy FromSoftware right now. Maybe they do think like, look, man, we don't want to like strong arm these guys. Because I'll tell you, I don't think Sony would have let them make, like if Sony had full control, I don't think they would have said, yeah, go ahead, make Armored Core after Elden Ring. I mean, maybe if Sony knew like you got a DLC in the works for Elden Ring, and who knows, you got like 3 other projects you're spooling up, maybe they would have said sure. I'm just saying it kind of takes balls to be like, yeah, so we just put out a game that sold 20 million copies, easy. We're going to make this game that really nobody knows about or not many people know about, and that's going to be our next thing. And dude, you know, like I saw it in real time. Like people were kind of like, yeah, FromSoft, man. I don't think I'm going to play this though. I'm not really interested in this. I saw that, and FromSoft was just like, that's cool. You don't have to. We just wanted to make this, and that's where I'm like, you know, Sony. Yeah, they should allow that to continue because that's one of the things that I think makes FromSoftware pretty cool. Is they got like this kind of AAA game output that's very rapid, but very diverse in that like they just kind of they float around to what they want to do. And but you know, it is fair to expect that if you were the owner of FromSoftware, you know, you'd be like, well, you know, so guys, where are we on that Elden Ring 2? We doing it? We're doing a sequel to that, right? I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, that's tantalizing. Who doesn't want to see more Elden Ring and to see that type of success again? I think everybody does. But Kadokawa says they have 20 games in development, but only like 2 studios. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. That's FromSoftware, bro. They got like 15 games cooking. Elden Ring remake. Elden Ring remake before Bloodborne remake, bro. I would love to see that. I would love to see it. I want to see that just for the chaos. You know, bring it on. Bring on the chaos. Do you guys see that there's a Dark Souls 3 remaster in the works, apparently? I want to see if there's any other updates on this situation, if we've learned anything more. So if I go to the PS5 subreddit, Kadokawa owns 70% of FromSoft. Sony already owns 14%. If this does go through, Sony will have 84%. Tencent and Sixjoy. Okay, so there's 2 other companies have the other 16%. Sony could probably buy From Software alone if they wanted. Hmm. These are some of the companies / developers that Kadokawa owns: From Software, Dark Souls, Armored Core, Elden Ring, Acquire. That's the name of, I think, the game company. Tenshu, Way of the Samurai, Octopath Traveler, Mario and Luigi Brotherhood, Gotcha Games, RPG Maker, Spike Chunsoft, Dragon Quest, Danganronpa, Dragon Ball Budokai Games. Interesting. Huh. As long as it doesn't negatively impact Miyazaki and the creative minds behind games at FromSoft. This person says, I doubt it would. Both Demon Souls and Bloodborne were published and co-developed by Sony. This person says, what a depressing future, Xbox and Sony owning a majority of game studios. Huh. Interesting times, man. Interesting times indeed. What's up, Irfan? Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Priorities, expectations, and goals change after an acquisition, and PlayStation would absolutely put their stamp on From Software after the failures of recent studio purchases and the new PlayStation leadership mandates. I do agree. I think that, yeah, they would put their stamp on them for sure, but I don't know how far reaching that would be. I think Sony would want to definitely brag, like, yeah, we like PlayStation logos all over FromSoft now. But I from a creative standpoint, I don't know how aggressive Sony would be. I just think it's too risky, you know? It's too risky to feel like, because I mean, like, how could you not trust From Software at this point? Waylark, you're saying, how many games on that list has you excited? I'll be honest, man, it's really just FromSoft. It's like it's why it's so weird to see this acquisition or to talk about it, because it's like, you know, I posted on Twitter today. I was like, Sony is in talks to acquire From Software. Thoughts? And like so many comments were people like, no, Kadokawa, bro, Kadokawa. And I'm like, no, like to me, it's like that's what this is. To me, this is a From Software acquisition. Like, I understand for Sony as a corporation that has multiple divisions. One of them is huge with anime and manga. I get it. But for me, as somebody where it's like, for me, Sony is PlayStation. PlayStation is what I care about. I mean, you know, I'm kind of interested in some of the electronics that Sony does sometimes, but that's basically what I care about. This whole thing basically to me translates to Sony's going to own From Software if this goes through. And considering From Software is one of my all-time favorite developers, and, you know, Dark Souls is my top 2 or 3 my favorite franchises ever. It's, to me, it's kind of a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, I'm really curious to see how this plays out and what it means. But if Sony wanted an RPG studio, CD Projekt Red would have been better. I mean, I think CD Projekt Red has made it clear that they're not going to sell. There have been rumors for years now about them being bought, but imagine the announcement at the VGAs. Well, here's something that's interesting and might be worth bringing up. For like years now, there have been rumors circulating that Sony did sign like another exclusive game for PS5 with From Software. That one of the games that FromSoft has been developing is a PS5 exclusive. I mean, I feel like the timing of this, you know, it would be a hell of an announcement. That would shock the shit out of me. I think that would shock the shit out of everybody. But but it's, we don't have a whole lot of proof right now of that. Trouble Champ, you're saying 4K 60 ray tracing on Callisto Protocol and 8K 30? Oh my God, 8K 30. A Japanese journalist says the talks have been going on for some time. Interesting. PlayStation doesn't have its own ticker, does it? Well, something that's worth keeping in mind with this. What's worth keeping in mind is that this is still just a rumor, and acquisitions can fall through very easily, just because there is a strong rumor of an acquisition, even if it's coming from a good source like Reuters, it's not a guarantee. This could not happen. What's interesting is we're hearing that the talks have been ongoing for a long time, and we're hearing that the deal could be done as soon as a couple of weeks. So maybe like December. Again, it doesn't guarantee anything, but the signs right now are pointing more towards it will go through. FromSoftware would operate as usual under Sony, same as they did when they collaborated with Demon's Souls and Bloodborne. In Sony's current fiscal situation, a purchase of this magnitude would put massive pressure on all divisions, including gaming, to make ROI as quickly and safely as possible. FromSoft would be closely controlled. Well, I mean, something that's worth noting here is I don't think Sony would make this purchase knowing it includes FromSoftware without knowing what FromSoftware is working on. So it could be that Sony, they have a clear visualization of FromSoftware's pipeline, and because of that, maybe that's where the confidence comes from. Because you're right, it's another large purchase. Sony has to be careful. They don't want to get burned. But I would say this too. The biggest, again, we saw the worst of the worst with Bungie. I feel extremely confident in saying that if this goes through, FromSoftware will produce results. They will produce good results for Sony. And when you consider the type, let's compare that to the results Bungie produced. I'm going to say that unless Miyazaki announces he's leaving, Sony acquires FromSoftware, Miyazaki announces I'm leaving. Okay, then we might be in a disastrous situation. Boss, we're not doing this again. This cat, man. Gotta be careful, or otherwise we might end up with Wokeborn 2. Wokeborn 2, bro. Boss. God damn it. I'm sorry, bro. I don't have treats for you. We didn't hit 25. Guys, we're probably going to be wrapping up the stream in the next 15 minutes or so. So, just, if you want to drop any more support, drop any more membership gifts. If we hit 25, we'll feed the beast. He's clearly getting impatient. Don't let this boy fool you. Don't let him fool you. He's been getting some treats. I gave him extra food yesterday. Extra wet food. So he's being good. Waylark, you're saying imagine Sony buys for anime and sells FromSoft to Tencent. Oh my god. Dude, I would freak out. I'd be like, there ain't no way. That would be the dumbest thing they could ever do. That would be the dumbest thing. Boss. Did boss just nod when he said he's getting impatient? He probably did, dude. He's starting to understand me more and more when I'm streaming. Oh my god, dude. Are you chill? Okay, thank you, bro. Thank you for the membership gift. Okay, drops a single. Yeah, keep in mind, guys, you can always drop a single gift as well if you want, if it's within your means. Appreciate that, bud. That brings us to 11. We'll see if we can get there before the timer runs out. Silent Spartan, you're saying members lounge today? So not today. I can't today because I actually have a doctor's appointment after today's stream. Otherwise, I would. To be honest, Silent Spartan, I was not even planning on streaming today. I started streaming today, well, because of I feel like this is kind of breaking news, but my throat is still killing me. So I'm going to the doctor to figure out what's going on there. I think I just might have, I don't know if, I'm thinking I might have strep throat. I'll be honest. I'll find out. I'm sure I'll get tested. I don't know how I could have that, but my throat's been killing me. And I'm shocked I've been able to talk this long. Thank you, Gavin. Gavin drops another membership gift and he says, "For boss." All right, go ahead, boss. Don't chew my mic. Don't chew my mic. Thank you, Gavin. That brings us up to 12. So Silent Spartan, what we'll probably do is hopefully if you know, I hope my throat starts to feel better. Hopefully my voice won't start to give out after an hour and a half or 2 hours of talking, and we'll be able to do some members lounges for the remainder of the week. I want to do them more. You know what's, listen, I got to tell you guys this, and I'm sure you've noticed. People were telling me that it seems like once you hit the 12-month mark with membership gifts, I don't know if this is true or not, but people have been saying that when you hit the 12-month mark with memberships, that you no longer get membership gifts. I don't know if that's true. I can't prove that. But what I will say is this. Boss, bro, hold on. My last members launch I did. So I checked my total members. We have about the same amount. Maybe a little bit less. But generally speaking, we have a healthy, normal amount of members that we've usually had. People were telling me that they've noticed like new names are getting gifted memberships, people that they've not really seen before. And I've speculated maybe this is due to new subscribers coming in. But what I noticed is on my last members lounge, there was very like noticeably, yeah, Gavin, like there was noticeably less people watching. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, I mean, it wasn't like a slight, like there's a, a little bit less interest, like lighter viewership. Like, no, dude, like it was a huge fall off. And so I was like, damn, like, did we lose a lot of members or something? So I went to go look. It's like, no, you have about the same amount. And I'm like, what's going on? And I think it's just a lot of people who have grown accustomed to getting the members lounges and getting the members content. I don't think that their memberships are getting re-upped as often. So, obviously what I try to encourage people to do is if you are able to re-up your membership, try to do that. I mean, it's $5 a month. And I know for, times are tough right now. I get it. There's no pressure. But if it's within your means, it does help. And it's a guarantee. It's a guarantee you'll get access to all the members content. Titus, you're saying, if I could get you some memberships, boss, I would. See, Titus has got you. He's like, who? You're saying it's the consistency mostly. They're too sporadic. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that I've been doing less members content overall, so that could be part of it. The reason for that is because I've been trying to double up my output. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I've been trying to double up my output on videos and streams. And I'll be honest, I have not been feeling great the past like month and a half, generally speaking. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So between my health, between trying to keep up, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. And hopefully today I'll figure out what's going on with my throat, though. But yeah, we'll be doing some more members content. I'm trying to, at the very least, I'm trying to do 1 to 2 pieces of members content a week. You know, I feel like that's what I'm striving for. Um, yeah, it was tough because like I remember like I'd say 2, maybe like 3 months ago, we were doing streams every single day, like 5 days a week, right? And I started getting a lot of complaints. They're like, "Bro, you're not doing videos anymore. You got to do videos." I'm like, "Shit, yeah." I feel bad because I got like 98,000 subs. Most of them are here for videos, and I've neglected that. So I was like, I got to get back on the grind. But now I'm finding it's like, well, now I got to find in where I can balance the members content with the streams. And Titus comes in. Titus comes in and drops another 5-bomb for you guys. Trying to see if I recognize anybody. I don't recognize any of these individuals who got gifted. But Titus, nonetheless, man, thank you so much. That brings us up to, I think that brings us up, yeah, that brings us up to 17. So we might be able to do it, guys. We might be able to hit the goal. We're pretty close now. I actually do need to go make sure I didn't miss any direct donations as well. So give me a moment just to check that. I think my notifications would have went off, but sometimes they don't. Okay, we're good. We're good there. I saw somebody saying that if I had strep throat, I wouldn't be able to talk. I don't know, dude. I'll let you guys know when I find out if that's what it is, because the past 3 days, it's that's why I'm going to the doctor, because it's been like multiple days. It's just not getting better. Feels like I'm swallowing shards of glass, and it's extremely painful. And I've had strep throat before, and that's what it feels like. Maybe, but if it's not that, I guess it could just be a cold. You know, just a really, really bad sore throat. This happens every year, man. I swear. Like every time the seasons change, specifically like October, November, I feel like I get so messed up. Your wife tested positive for strep this morning. Son had the flu last week. Yeah, November is bullshit sometimes, right? Scuba tank filled with farts. Best name. Says 15 hours in Stalker 2. I'm personally loving it, but it's not for everyone. Game is brutal from a survival FPS difficulty. I think it'll review 7 to 8-ish. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that intense, but it has my interest peaked for sure. I'm going to be paying attention to the reviews. Not that, you know, I like not so much the review scores, but just getting more info about the game and like the actual gameplay loop. Because I didn't realize it went that hard with the survival aspect. It's not on PlayStation. Right now, it's exclusive. It's a console exclusive to Xbox, but it does seem like it's a timed exclusive. So my hope is that it will come to PlayStation. If it doesn't, maybe I'll go out of my way to play it on Xbox somehow. You died like 40 times. Is it like a Souls game? It's canceled. Wait, Blaze, you're saying it's canceled for PlayStation. What makes you say that? Did I miss something? No way it's exclusive. Microsoft would never. Phil said so. Elden Ring 2 and Bloodborne 2, PlayStation 6. There was an article about it? You know, let me look this up. Now I'm curious. Stalker 2 PS5. Let's see. 5 days ago. Is Stalker 2 coming to PS5? No, Stalker 2 will not launch on PlayStation consoles, and there are no details regarding the FPS game coming to PS5 in the future. The previous game was on PS4. Okay, well, that's the only thing they said. Yeah, it's one of these things where it is exclusive right now and there's no word. But I don't know, man. That would be really strange to me. I'll be honest. That would be really strange to me because it's just like that's not usually how Microsoft operates. Like they've actually went against doing this type of stuff. Oh, Waylark, did I miss your super chat, bud? Hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, dude. Waylark, you said news on PlayStation 6 and handheld chips, gaming leaks and rumors. Oh shit. All right, let me head over there and check that out. And before I do, we have Pasho9. He says, if this acquisition happens, you have no excuse to not play Sekiro. Oh shit. Oh shit. You know what? No, I don't want this to go through. I want this deal to fall through. I don't want nothing to do with it. Yeah, technically it's owned by Activision, but I get where you're coming from. I get what you mean. I get what you mean. All right, let me go check the Gaming Leaks Rumor subreddit. Silent Spartan with a super chat. He says, elderberry. God, I know the word. I know what this is. I don't know how to pronounce it. So I'm not going to read that. But elderberry and oil of oregano will clear your throat quickly. Also, gargle salt water. Yeah, I've been doing everything I can. I haven't been doing all of that. I do have elderberry tea, I think. But gargling with warm water and salt. I will say that I got to figure out what's going on, dude. Because I thought the reason why my throat was hurting like this was from like acid reflux. Because, you know, sometimes if it's bad enough, it can make your throat sore. But then I kind of started to realize, like, man, this is like really bad. Like, this definitely doesn't feel, this feels like more like a sickness. What's weird, though, is I don't have any other symptoms. I'm not stuffed up. I don't have a headache. I don't have a fever. I just have a really, really sore throat. So, I don't know. I'm hoping to figure it out soon what's going on because I've had, like, horrible acid reflux. Now just a terrible sore throat. Maybe it's caused by that. Maybe it's not. I'm just trying to get some answers, you know? I've been trying to change my diet. I've been trying to eat a little bit healthier. Manuka honey. I heard Manuka honey is really, really, really good, dude. I was actually thinking about buying that. And Steven Leon comes in and drops a 10 bomb on you guys, and he does it. Steven, thank you so much, bro. He comes in, drops 10 memberships, gets us past the goal of 25. Boss is going to be very happy. Lay off the chocolate. I have actually. I have not been eating chocolate. But yeah, that Manuka honey, I heard that stuff's no joke. I think I'll buy some, actually. I mean, I've been... So, here's something that I think I messed up recently. Before I go to the Gaming Leaks Rumor subreddit. I was having really bad acid reflux, and I had read... Check this out. I heard that you can do a baking soda test, right? And what this test does is in the first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, you basically take like a teaspoon of, or like half a teaspoon of baking soda, and you put it in like 5 ounces of water, you mix it, you drink it down. And what this test is supposed to do is tell you if you have low or high stomach acid. If you have low stomach acid, you won't burp, or it'll take a long time to burp. If you have high stomach acid, you'll burp like you'll burp like within a minute or two, or right away. And so I did this test, and I didn't burp at all. Like, I just didn't burp. So I'm like, all right, I guess you're saying that's pure witchcraft. I don't know. Apparently, it's not the most accurate test, but apparently it's supposed to give you an idea. Like, if you're having a problem, it should be able to tell you. I never burped. So I was like, oh, I must have low stomach acid. So then I bought apple cider vinegar because I had looked into it, and people were saying that, listen, if you suffer from low stomach acid, which can mimic the signs of high stomach acid, ironically enough, if you have low stomach acid, take like a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar with some water 20 minutes before eating. It'll help your digestion a lot. I did that. And that's where I like realized like I'm done with all this shit, bro, because I got fucked up after that. I think I made it so much worse. Like my acid got so much worse. I'm like, okay, I don't think I have low stomach acid because that shit is not supposed to make it worse if I did. And so I've just been taking it easy, eating like bland foods, trying to figure it out, man. I know I have been seeing the doctors too, to be clear. I'm not one of those people, you know, that's like, I'm not seeing the doctors. Some doctors, you know, better than others, but Stephen Leon, bro, with a $50 super chat as well. Thank you so much. You're saying donation for your wife's Switch. Did anyone get a gifted membership? Guys, let Steven know if you got a gifted membership. And thank you, bro. Steven wasn't kidding. He's legit going to fund Mrs. MBG's new Switch. I think she did settle on what she wants to get. Mrs. MBG just yelled from the other room. She said, thank you, Steven. She's clearly hype. I think she was eyeing the pink Switch Lite, I think is what she wants to get. But I don't know that we were like looking and it seems like Nintendo doesn't really mass produce those anymore. So we might have to get it from like a different retailer. But I think it was like $160 or something. Unknown, we had this conversation, bro. But Steven, thank you so much, man. That's very kind of you. And I'm definitely we're gonna have to buy Mrs. MBG her Switch. I think we'll be able to buy it in the next couple days. Devil Shooter saying MBG update. Bo came home. The vet said no vomit. He vomited. He's back at the vet till tomorrow. Oh man. Damn. Not the ideal update, Devil Shooter. Well, hang in there, man. You know, we'll still be hoping for the best for Bo. I appreciate you giving us that update. That sucks, man. Hopefully you'll be okay. Steven, you're saying I mean what I say. No Switch. No Switch lights. The regular Switch. LOL. Whatever she wants. He was like, whatever she wants, bro. Get her whatever she wants. Well, I gotta feed Boss his treats, and then we're gonna go check the Gaming Leaks Rumor subreddit because apparently there's some news about next gen over there.
Boss, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
Well, you could try it for me, see what it says. All right, there you go, Boss. You eat those treats, and then I'll give Luna some. Sorry for the dead air there. Yeah, Terrence, that's scary shit right there, dude. Stalker 2 PC Game Pass member stream. There's a bunch of sirens going off outside, man. What? I'm not sure. Is that coming through? Boss, it's okay, bro. They're not coming for you. Boss, come finish your treats, man. Wow, they scared him away. It's all good. Dude, he's pacing the room now. He really thought he was under attack. All right, Luna, I guess you're up. Come on. You're up. There you go. Whenever you're ready. She's a little freaked out too. Man, those sirens really just scared the shit out of these cats. All right, let me go over here now. I've kept Waylark waiting long enough. Sony's PlayStation 6 will use AMD's UDNA GPU architecture and Zen 5 or Zen 6 for the CPU. Sony's upcoming handheld will also use AMD hardware. Microsoft is deciding between Qualcomm and AMD for their upcoming handheld. Where's this information coming from, though? Zhang Ho? You guys like my pronunciation? Zhang Ho. I can pronounce Chinese. I think that's Chinese. I don't even know. Zhang Ho. I definitely didn't say it right. That's not a real name. I don't know, but it says apparently this source has been reliable in the past and has previously leaked legitimate roadmaps. I'm clicking on the link now to see. Okay, yeah, this is a Chinese website. Okay, it's a Chinese forum, and apparently this is like a Chinese insider who's leaking roadmaps. So it says no more RDNA 5 codename. After RDNA 4, it's UDNA. MI400 and RX 9000 are using the same UDNA architecture using GCN-like ALU design. UDNA gaming GPU tentative plan Q2 2026 mass production. Sony's PlayStation 6 will be using... Wow, there's more sirens. Now, oh my God. Dude, the timing of giving these cats their treats. Sony's PS6 will be using UDNA. The CPU has not yet been determined whether it's Zen 4 or Zen 5. Sony's hand. Okay. Huh. So I don't quite understand, like, what... I don't know, like, what is UDNA compared to RDNA? I don't really know what to make of this. I mean, Sony's handheld using AMD hardware. It's interesting because they're not saying anything about the next home console from Microsoft. Nothing about the next home console. AI learning. It means expensive. Let me look it up. AMD UDNA. AMD's next-gen UDNA architecture-based Radeon gaming GPUs will allegedly enter mass production in Q2 of 2026 and will also be integrated into Sony's PS6. It has already been reported that AMD plans to bring its GPU lineup under one unified architecture, which will be known as UDNA. This will combine the best of the CDNA and RDNA, Instinct and Radeon respectively lineups under one roof. I don't even know what CDNA is. I mean, I've heard of RDNA. I don't think I've really heard of CDNA. This will mark a fresh start for the AMD GPU design or division, which currently has two different architectures aimed at different applications. Okay, I guess that explains that then. While little is known about the changes that will be made to the architecture itself, they will be succeeding the CDNA 4 and RDNA 4 family of GPUs, which are expected to be the last ones to use these naming conventions. Currently, AMD marks the Instinct MI400 series as CDNA next, and it is reported that this will be changed to UDNA along with the successor to RDNA 4, which should have been called RDNA 5 series with the existing naming. The UDNA lineup will be split into two segments, one targeting AI and HPC, while the other targets gamers. Based on a post... Hold on. Based on a post by Shipel forum member, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, Zhang Zhan Hao, who has recently been active and posted some information that turned out to be correct. It looks like the user has some new points to share about the lineup. Okay. Well, interestingly, the Sony PlayStation 6 is said to utilize the same UDNA architecture. The PS5 Pro currently uses a hybrid of RDNA 3 and RDNA 4 design, leveraging the same compute capabilities as the existing architecture while also benefiting from some of the technologies that we'll see on consumer-grade GPUs next year in the form of faster ray tracing and AI capabilities. The leaker also alleges that Microsoft is working on its handheld and will have the choice to select between Qualcomm and AMD. But given how strong AMD has gotten in the handheld segment, it will be the wisest choice since Qualcomm still has a long way to go in the GPU department despite offering strong NPU/CPU capabilities. Next-gen Orion cores have already been tested. Huh. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not exactly sure what to take from this. I guess maybe that's true. It will be expensive. Layman's explanation: RDNA is for AI graphics processing, CDNA is for general AI computing. Okay. Yeah, I will say, man, the strangest thing is that, like, it's not strange that PlayStation 6 is sticking with AMD and that it's going to offer cutting edge technology. I mean, what that means for pricing, who knows? What's strange to me is that they're mentioning Microsoft's handheld, but not their next gen console. What could that mean? Like, could it mean that Microsoft's next gen console could be partnered with Nvidia, but their handheld will not be, and it'll be partnered with AMD instead? Nvidia is even more expensive than AMD. You think they're not making one? King Sam, you're saying, MBG, I got a 50 bomb waiting for when you platinum Sekiro. Get on it. Oh my God. Bro says he's got a 50 bomb, not even for me beating Sekiro, but for straight up platinuming it. Oh man. I don't know. There are a lot of things I would do for a 50 bomb, bro. But platinuming Sekiro, I don't think. Oof. I don't think that's. I don't know that that's going to be worth it for me at that point, man. Because isn't that game like notoriously difficult to platinum? I mean, one day, not this day, but one day, I will eventually go back to Sekiro. That'd be. I mean, listen, don't underestimate me. I went back and I platinumed Elden Ring. I never thought I would platinum that game, dude. So it's possible. You know, I remember when I finished Elden Ring, I was like, yeah, I think I'm done. Right? I'm not getting the platinum. It's never happening. 2 years later, I'm like, you know what? I think I'll go get the platinum. And it was hard. It was not easy. At least it didn't seem easy at the time. Steven's like, I'm in on it too, bro. If you can platinum Demon Souls, you can platinum Sekiro. I got pretty close to platinuming Demon Souls, but then I kind of walked away from it. King Sam, you're saying the platinum's not difficult. If I can achieve it, you can too. Well, right now I'm playing Until Dawn. Gotta say, I'm really liking Until Dawn. Like, way more than I thought I would. I've never played Until Dawn. I think I'm only like chapter 3. And like I'm not rushing through it. But I'm like, it doesn't have, it's not very gameplay heavy, but I don't know, man. I'm like I'm like way more interested in the story and the characters than I expected to be. I'm like, this is actually pretty awesome, and I don't think I've played anything quite like this before. I'm playing the remake, and it looks good, dude. Like like there, you could tell it's a PS4 game in some sense, though, where like there's some of the facial expressions are a little weird at times, but it's very good. Like I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would, to be honest. I was expecting to just kind of feel okay about Until Dawn, like, you know, 50 Bomb the Platinum, Life is Strange, Double Exposure. I never played any of the Life is Strange games. Are they good? All right. It's easy to platinum them. You know what's weird is like I don't know. What I've noticed with me these days, I'm kind of like, the way I work with platinums is I get like an itch sometimes. Like sometimes I get this itch where it's like I want to start platinuming a lot of games, but then I just kind of relax on it, and I'm like, I'm not really worried about platinuming. Like I still trophy hunt, but I'm not really worried about platinuming. You know, I've still been playing Call of Duty, and I need, I think, one more trophy for Call of Duty, but there is no fucking platinum. So that would be a platinum, but they didn't include it because they're stupid. Activision sucks. But I think, I don't know, I might try to platinum Until Dawn and take it from there, see what I'll play after that. What were the alarms earlier? They weren't alarms, they were sirens. I don't know. I don't know. I did see earlier on Twitter that the world might be entering World War III again or something. Do you guys see this? Did that happen while I was live? Was it announced yet? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It was kind of weird. I'm going to be wrapping up the stream in just a couple minutes, but apparently, like, Joe Biden was like, go ahead. You can, he like gave the thumbs up to Ukraine that you can use like our missiles now, like our long range missiles. And then Ukraine was like, okay. And Russia, I think Putin was like, so we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons if you do that. And then so the very next day, Ukraine was like, we're going to do it. And then they did it. And and you know what's so weird, dude, is like, I'm seeing people, they're like, they're claiming now, they're like, well, it's because Trump won the election. You know, like Trump won the election, so they're going to try to incite World War III before he even gets inaugurated. And I'm you know, I'm not usually into those types of conspiracy theories, but I'm like, this is a little weird. It's a little weird, isn't it? Like this whole time, at any point, Biden could have said, go ahead, you can use our missiles, but he didn't. Not until just right after. I'm like, that's some weird shit right there, bro. It's pretty weird. Kind of scary, not gonna lie. I mean, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it, but you just gotta wonder what's the end game here, you know? Like I'm just thinking like, okay, you're trying to call Putin's bluff. Putin says we'll use nuclear weapons if you do this, and we're just like, nah, we're gonna do it anyway, bitch. No balls. And then they're like, yeah, go ahead. We do it. And then it's like, so what does this mean exactly? Yeah, like I don't know. It's like, is Putin going to be like, oh shit, how did they know I was lying? Or is he going to be like, well, I fucking warned them? You know, it's scary shit, dude. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Starting to worry about the Ukraine's new missile stuff. We're getting nearer to Russia being actually invaded or seriously damaged by a country backed by NATO. Well, I mean, that is the scary part of it, right? Like, it's the fact that, you know, there's been warning after warning given by Russia that, like, and I'll be honest, it's kind of a bitch move. Like, I get it, but it is a bitch move where it's like, we'll use our weapon, we'll use nukes, and it's like the whole idea of nuclear deterrence is no, you won't, because if you use nukes, we'll use them too, and it's game over for everybody. And then everybody's like, well, they're going to nuke Ukraine, and it's like, well, I mean, if their whole objective was to take over Ukraine and have that land for themselves, why would they want to destroy it? I mean, I don't know. I guess if they take the approach of, well, if we can't have it, nobody can. Yeah, I don't know, man. Shit's getting really hairy out here. I don't know. I don't know what's going to go on. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen. But I do think the timing of this is really fucking weird. Like, it's like, I'm not one of these people that's like into the conspiracy theories and stuff, but it's so weird. That's like, you just decide this now out of nowhere after like a year and a half. The timing is bizarre. He won't use them unless he thinks the regime is in danger of falling. You're saying Putin is a real one, too? I mean, you're talking about geopolitics and conflict around the world, and it's just like, it's rough, man. That's the nature of of war. Everybody thinks they're right in war, and everybody has to like pick their side, and everybody has their reason. And, you know, there are some cases where it's a little bit more clear cut. And I think with Russia and Ukraine, a lot of people would say it's clear cut. But I don't know, man. The thing that's scary about it to me is just that, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Do you, like, how far do you take it when it comes to calling Russia's bluff? Because I don't know, man. I was just thinking, it's a dark thought, but after reading that news today, I was just thinking, like, how does the world react if, like, Russia is just like, yeah, we're dropping a nuke on Ukraine now? Like what does the world do? What does America do? Like, what does the US do? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know. We have not crossed that line. And it's just always you can't let somebody's empty threats necessarily, you can't let that determine everything, because it gives them an insane amount of power where it's like, all I got to do is just say nuke. I'll use a nuke, and boom, I got you under my thumb. You won't do shit now. It sets a bad precedent to allow that to occur. But it's also kind of understandable why you would, because it's like, but what if they're not lying? And then we're all fucked. It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. It's why you saw people that are like, yo, just give them Ukraine, man. It ain't worth sacrificing the whole world. I'm like, well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's like, save one, kill 1,000. Kill one, save 1,000. What kind of fucking choices are these? Like, is this how it's got to be? It's the conundrum, man. The conundrum of the human condition. Anyway, don't want to go too deep into that territory, but world peace, man. But if you give him Ukraine, what's next? Well, that's the problem, Terrence. That's what I mean. If you just say, go ahead, I mean, shit. It always reminds me of that song. I brought it up before, but I'll bring it up again. The Tool song, Right Into, always reminds me of that. Fighting over another's piece of ground. Gavin, you're saying the weapons can carry nukes and reach Moscow. They're also operated by American or other NATO troops. No president could put up with that and live. Well, scary times, man. I mean, there's always some shit going on, you know? There's always some shit going on. I mean, we live in a day and age now where nuclear... There are superpowers with nuclear capability that could literally just destroy the fucking planet. And it is sad that... And this is why... I think this is why I've always liked some of Kojima's messaging in Metal Gear about, like, nuclear deterrence. It is so fascinating where it's like... It's just such a sad thing that, like, the only thing stopping us from destroying ourselves is our own sense of self-preservation. That, you know, it's not that I wouldn't want to destroy you completely. It's just I refuse to do that knowing it destroys me as well. God, if that doesn't just perfectly encapsulate what's wrong, you know, with humanity. But saying war is dumb but very lucrative, most of this is orchestrated. I thought about that too. Dude, listen, before I head out, don't you think it's... I've been seeing shit trending, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen this about aliens and how, like, parts of the... Like, I don't know if the government is now basically just saying, like, yeah, we're pretty sure aliens live in the ocean. Have you guys seen this? I'm like, what? Like, this is just like a thing that's being talked about open, and like nobody gives a shit. Am I going to play Callisto Protocol in 8K? Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, I'm like, what? I don't even know, like, what timeline did I slip into, man? You know, what timeline did I slip into? I mean, I believe it. I do believe in aliens, and I believe they're real. I don't know. The thing that I would have a hard time believing is that they give a shit about us. You know? Like, my guess is, like, bro, listen, if aliens are coming to Earth, we're probably a zoo to them. Like, it's literally the equivalent of, like, when we go to visit animals at a zoo and watch them in their natural habitat. Like, I feel like that's what we are to them. I could be wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore, man. Yeah, the deep ocean shit is freaky. That stuff is freaky. Yeah, really quick to do a hard shift here. People were telling me that the Callisto Protocol, the PS5 Pro patch came out. It's like full 4K or like native 4K 60 FPS with full ray tracing. That's pretty insane. I mean, I played the Callisto Protocol. It wasn't that bad. It was a little bit weaker than I expected, but that's impressive. Let's just talk about Phil Spencer again, not politics. Yeah, we're talking about aliens living in the ocean. We're talking about, you know, geopolitical warfare and the PS5 Pro. Now, let me tell you how all these things are connected. Let me tell you why I think the PS5 Pro could save the world and unite humanity. I mean, to be honest, I'm not worried about any of this shit because the truth is, it's like a low-key members lounge. I've had to start making the members lounges public because none of the people expecting memberships are getting them, at least not yet. So, nah, but I am gonna wrap it up. Phil Spencer's making pancakes at IHOP. That's in conclusion, right? That's it. That's what it all comes down to. But guys, my voice is starting to go. I could tell, like, my I'm pushing a little bit far here. So this is a good place to wrap it up. The PS5 Pro will bring world peace, and that's all you need to know. Okay, the PS5 Pro was created by aliens. Mark Cerny's an alien. He lives deep in the ocean, and he has given us the answer that humanity needs. So, all right, guys. Oh, and Phil Spencer's working at IHOP. So that's, in conclusion, that's all you need to know. But Ghetto God, I'm sorry, bro. It's my voice. My voice is starting to go. I apologize, man. That does it. I'm going to wrap the stream up here. Before I go, I want to give a big thank you to everybody who showed their support today. We hit 27 members, which is great to see. Thank you so much for that. We got a good amount of super chats. Thank you for all the direct support. We are fan funded. I can only do this because you make it possible. So thank you guys so much. Shout out to Devil Shooter. Don't know if he can do the timestamps today. We're wishing his dog the best. Prayers for Bo. Hopefully everything's good with him. But Devil Shooter, thank you so much for what you do. And that's it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care of yourself. I got a doctor's appointment I got to attend, and I got to rest my voice. So hopefully I'll be back here tomorrow. And yeah, just do me a favor and hit that like button, and I will catch you guys in the next one. So until then, take care, everyone, and thank you.